I was influenced by my friends in school playing music at the sixth grade talent show.
Mm-hmm.
And when they won the talent show, and they actually got up and played rock and roll songs of the day, it was like a big deal. And not too long after that, the acoustic guitar showed up in my Christmas pile.
Do you remember what the band played that they won with?
I do.
What was it?
They played I'm Not Your Stepping Stone
Mm-hmm.
and In the Midnight Hour and Gloria and As Tears Go By.
Well,
This was the 1960s.
Yes, it was.
That was new stuff then.
and then you got an acoustic guitar for Christmas.
Well, actually, I started making guitars out of construction scraps. Just not real guitars, because this was also the time of the Monkees,
Mm-hmm.
where you didn't really play, you stood there while the record played and pretended to play guitar, which was kind of made it clear to my parents that I wanted to do something like that. And so then they got me an acoustic guitar. And then not long on the next birthday was an electric guitar. And then the first band was at 14 with Ricky Alvis. He's a local.
So
pretty
this was
well-known
all
sound
preteen and teen, just preteen and
like,
teen years.
like at 14 we had our first band and played a couple of dances around town. And,
Mhm.
yeah, we weren't very good, but we were doing something.
Were you right?
The songwriting thing didn't start until after I started the studio over on East Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And all these people coming through with their original songs kind of motivated me to write songs. I was like, well, maybe it's not that hard.
Yeah.
You know, in the past I'd been a cover artist guy for years and years, playing in bands, delivering other people's music, and since they were always the hit songs, they were kind of the best songs that there were. And so the idea to be able to compete with that seemed rather far-fetched,
What do you mean?
as far as trying to write songs that were as good as the songs I was playing that were the
Right.
hit songs on the radio.
Right.
It's like I couldn't write anything that good.
Mm-hmm.
But then later on, people started coming through and they're writing their songs, and I realized that, well, maybe the idea isn't so far off.
Right.
And so I started with just a couple of things, and some of the music that I've written is based on the arthritis problems that I started encountering. Because as a cover artist, I was out playing every weekend, not worrying about writing songs. I had plenty of tunes to choose from that
Right.
people were happy to hear.
Right.
But the arthritis started to get me. In about 2004, I had to leave the full-time stage.
Really?
I couldn't handle a 4-hour gig anymore. It's too
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of sat back and said, well, okay, I've had my run. I had many, many thousands of hours on stage during my cover artist career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
One day I got a call from the drummer that has been with me for 9 years, Herb Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Herb's like, I really want to play. Guys in my band, who I'd met him with, they'd come to my studio to record. Herb was a decade and a half older than they were, so his children were grown and he was ready to get out and play.
Mm-hmm.
They were just starting to have babies,
Mhm.
which pretty much takes up all your time,
Right.
or at least it was doing for them, between working and children, no time to play. So
Mhm.
Herb's like, I really want to play. I was like, well, I'm not unwilling to play, but it's going to cost me some pain.
Right.
So if we're going to play, I'm only going to suffer for my music.
Right.
And at that point, the original catalog had grown to the point where I had a complete album and a few more. So we started to look for somebody to play bass, and Wayne Thursby
Mhm.
had been coming to the studio with an excellent songwriter named Justin Blowers. Think a little bit. And Paul Kime and Matt Murphy. I don't know, you might know Matt Murphy. He still drums around
I
town.
don't know.
And they had come in, made this great record, and then Justin moved to North Carolina.
Yeah.
There was no work here. Construction died, and he was a stonemason guy, so he moved. And they were kind of without a singer then. And they tried to find people and tried to find people. They wrote 13 more songs and
Mhm.
recorded 13 instrumentals,
Mm-hmm.
waiting for the singer to
Waiting
show
for the
up.
singer.
He never did. So I said, well, Wayne, it doesn't look like this is going anywhere. Would you be interested in playing over here?
Right.
And he said, yeah. Well, 1997, I moved back to Sarasota from being out on the road and playing in bands around the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working with a partner who had written some songs, and I liked his stuff. And I started coming up with just little bits and pieces at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Things that, like the first melody that became the song called The Pretty One, which
Mm-hmm.
was the first completed song.
Mm-hmm.
And then a bunch of songs came after that pretty fast because I had some subject material, you know. A lot of musicians write songs about their broken heart or their lost love, and
Sure.
that's what the first album was all about.
For you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was what I called my solo album because
Mm-hmm.
it was pre-Reckless Deriver writing.
Mm-hmm.
When I first met these guys, I'd already written these songs, recorded them, you know, done all the
Right.
drum work in the computer, and I knew exactly what I wanted them to play.
Right.
There were a couple of moments where I was getting micromanagement's
Right.
not always the most popular thing. And though it wasn't exactly to everyone's taste, they went along. And by the time I had taught them the first 10 songs, I became so confident in their abilities that I started approaching the songwriting more like, I got a new thing. This is what I'm doing. What do you got?
Mm-hmm.
And they started writing their own parts and wrote
Mhm.
better parts than I could have.
Right.
So it became a group effort at that point, even though I probably wrote the initial chord progression and lyric. The way that they fleshed out the song with their playing was
Mhm.
way beyond anything that I could have created out of my head
Was
because
that
they're better players.
Was that a difficult psychological jump for you to make, going from being controlling, you know, every element of the creation of the song to letting go and letting?
Actually, it was a relief.
Yeah.
I don't have to write all the parts now.
Yeah.
I've got people who can write their own, and I can trust them to write something good.
Right.
Yay!
Yeah. No, it's hard for some people.
It is. And, well, the thing is that first you got to spend a lot of time playing together
Mm-hmm.
and learning how each other play. And you may find that you're playing with somebody whose ideas aren't really happening for you.
Right.
With these guys, it was always felt very good from day one.
And what is your feeling? What's your take on Sarasota's music culture?
Well, we have a supply and demand situation.
Mm-hmm.
The supply far outweighs the demand. We have a lot of really good musicians here,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I don't think people appreciate just how good the musical talent in this area is.
Mm-hmm.
They've become a little used to it, like it doesn't, you know, I can remember going out to the Midwest, being on the road, and
Mhm.
people were just, if you had a good band, people would come out in droves. They would support, they would appreciate.
Mhm.
Here it's like you got to take off your clothes and set your hair on fire to even get somebody to look in your direction.
I think I saw that show.
They've seen it all. There's nothing new you can show them. So at a certain point, I've noticed a lot of the bands in the area, they look at it like it's not worth making more effort.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get more mileage out of more effort.
Mm-hmm.
So you do what's necessary,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all.
Mm-hmm.
And you get your night's pay, and you go home.
Mm-hmm.
You pay your bills. Well, you know, Sarasota has tons of bands.
Mhm.
A lot of them really good.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see any one of those bands any weekend of the year.
That's right.
We'll be here this weekend,
Right.
this weekend only. Please come out and see us.
All right. Cool.